Well, a New York Times poll that came out on Monday showed Donald Trump leading President Biden in 5 key battleground states. Trump is taking a chunk of the younger voter base as well as Black and Hispanic voters. This news is a major blow to Democrats hoping for an easy re-election for Biden. Former CNN President Jeff Zucker joined us live at Yahoo Finance Invest yesterday and said that there is a distinct possibility of another Trump win, but we shouldn't pay too much attention to polling like this. Let's take a listen.
I think that the key in preparing for that possibility, and I think you have to acknowledge it's a real possibility, is not to get caught up in the polls that came out yesterday. There's so much attention attendant to that, and I think that continues to be a huge mistake. If you went by the poll in 1983, you would have thought that there's no way that Ronald Reagan could win re-election, or the poll in 2011, there's no way that Barack Obama could have won re-election.
So just how much stock should we put in these polls? Let's bring in Niall Stanage, who is a White House columnist for The Hill. Niall, let's begin there. I mean, we point back to whether it be the midterm elections of 2022 or whether it even be the 2020 presidential elections, and looked across a couple key battleground states. Polling wasn't necessarily spot on there, and so that really cast a lot of question mark on the strength of the polling figures coming into the general election in 2024.
Yeah, I do get that, Brad, and I get the reasons why there's public skepticism of polls. We have seen pollsters miss several times. I think what pollsters would tell you in their defense is that polls can be useful in either measuring patterns, measuring trends, or indicating public perception beyond just the question of whether they're going to vote for candidate X or candidate Y. So in that poll from the New York Times at the weekend, one of the most notable things about it was how many people are concerned about President Biden's age. More than 70% feeling that he couldn't serve a second term effectively, that he's too old to do so. We have seen that over several polls. It is plainly a major worry for voters. It's plainly not just something that Republicans use to beat the president with, and it's an issue for the White House. That does not mean, to take Jeff Zucker's point, that the exact result in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Michigan 1 year from now is going to be what those polls predict.
Kind of amazing. Here we're talking about age and Republicans using it so much when the age difference is just about 3 years between Trump and Biden. Now, I'm curious, if the election were to be held today, who do you think would win?
Trump would win. I think
Trump was the nominee.
If Trump was the nominee, I think he would beat President Biden right now, because we have seen so many of these polls now, whether it be in key states or nationally, that give him a very slight edge. Now, it will be different a year from now. Former President Trump, if he's the nominee, will be front and center. That draws some people in, but honestly puts a lot of people off. He is still quite deeply unpopular himself. But you look across the board at President Biden's numbers on the economy, on immigration, on inflation, on a whole range of topics, and none of them are good. The White House and his re-election team are trying to change that, trying to change public perception, especially around the economy. But right now, if it were a referendum on the president, he wouldn't be voted in for a second term, in my judgment.
You know, it's interesting. In some of the elections that took place across a few states and at the state legislature level yesterday, there was some sweeping Democratic wins. And, you know, a roundup of some of the headlines, whether it be from The Hill and talking about that, 5 takeaways from the winning election night for Democrats, or Rolling Stone that said, you know, abortion, maybe stealing women's rights wasn't the best election plan. It seems like there is a referendum that also is coming for the GOP right now, too, with regard to some key issues that they've been very vocal about. And for a lot of voters that are getting out there, finally, they're coming to the polls with these in mind.
I think anytime there's a commonality between Rolling Stone and The Hill, there's definitely something going on. And it is for sure an issue that the abortion topic is really, really salient. And it's really fascinating the way the political pendulum swings sometimes, Brad, because when you think about this, the anti-abortion or pro-life or whatever term you want to use, that side fought for 49 years to get Roe versus Wade undone, to get it repealed. They finally succeeded in doing that. And they've been getting thrashed everywhere ever since in statewide ballot measures, including in conservative states. Ohio, from yesterday's an increasingly conservative state. We've also seen similar results in places like Kentucky and Montana. So there's obviously an issue where the denial of abortion or restrictive abortion bans are politically toxic, and they're toxic for the Republican Party. And it's a really important element in Democrats' appeal, not just at the presidential level, but at these levels of state races that we saw yesterday. I mean, Andy Beshear, the governor in Kentucky, won a second term in an extremely conservative state. And one of the reasons was he was able to use the abortion issue to his advantage.
Now, the Israel-Hamas war, it seems like Americans are split just on the response from the U.S. so far. How do you see this affecting 2024?
In terms of the politics of it, I think there's a danger for Democrats because they are more divided on that topic. Now, I feel like I don't want to necessarily skip straight to the politics without acknowledging there's just enormous human suffering going on there, both amongst the Palestinians and the Israelis from the October 7th attack. Politically, there's a big split between traditional Democrats who tend to be older and more centrist, who are much more reflexively pro-Israel, and younger, more left-wing Democrats who have much more sympathy in the broader struggle with the Palestinians. We see this split, obviously, between someone like Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and President Biden. You know, the Congresswoman accused him of being complicit in genocide. The political danger there, I think, is that those divisions could depress Democratic turnout potentially next year. If there's even a small segment of the Democratic Party that feels that the president has been too pro-Israel to the extent of essentially giving a carte blanche to Israel to kill enormous numbers of Palestinians, obviously that can be a problem for Democrats going into the 2024 election.